Hello and welcome. Inspired is
Hello.
very proud to be actively involved in Work in Publishing Week. And this year, we are collaborating very closely with the Publishers Association to bring you the most relevant advice, content, and resources to help you explore what it's really like to work in publishing. So, this week is all about those working in publishing and aspiring to work in publishing. So, we've had a brilliant week so far. We've had some amazing panel discussions, some stories from real publishing people,
Mm.
sharing how they've got into publishing and showcasing their different backgrounds. And today we are talking about publishing pathways. So we are exploring the different routes into things like academic, educational, and professional publishing. So I'm very excited to be here with my esteemed colleagues, Verity Hawson, our resident expert in educational publishing, and Alice Bidetti, our specialist in academic publishing.
Hello, hello.
So,
Hello.
so let's get started. Alice, I
Yes,
wonder, could you describe what you mean when we talk about academic publishing?
of course. So academic publishing is that amazing big world of any type of university, higher education, and scholarly content. So it's actually quite a big sector because it covers any subject areas that people might study at university. If you think about it, they all need textbooks, they all need reference works, they need to get their own research published. So in terms of who this content is for, it can be for university students and their teachers, but also researchers or scientists, medical professionals, anyone that is an expert in a scholarly field. And it can cover a lot of different formats. It can be textbooks, it can be monographs, journals, teaching tools, discovery platforms, reference works. So if you think about research and further education, I think that covers the whole academic world. I hope that makes
Wonderful.
sense.
Brilliant.
um,
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
was, yeah, but I wondered, Verity, can you tell us a bit more about the educational sphere?
Absolutely. So, educational publishing is very much about creating materials to help teachers teach and to help students learn. So, it could be anything from print textbooks to digital versions, or all the different types of resources. If you think about what children are using in the classroom and what teachers are using to help children learn, it could also be teacher guides, it could be flashcards, it could be online materials. And of course, the purpose of these wonderful educational resources is to help um, make sure that children are achieving their learning objectives and the learning outcomes. Um, and so the audience that the materials are aimed at are either students or teachers or schools or educational institutions or educational charities. It could be ed tech organizations as well that are producing content in lots of different formats. And it could be tailored to specific age groups or different curricula, like the IB, the International Baccalaureate. It could be whether it's English language teaching, publishing as well. It could be for children with different learning needs as well. So it could be for SEND learners. And here at Inspired, we partner with all different types of educational organizations. So it could be anything from more traditional textbook publishers or ed techs or charities, all sorts of learning organizations, whether it is, K-12 international schools or assessment or higher education. And it might even involve gamification in terms of learning, like maths games to help make learning fun and engaging. So that's a bit of an overview of educational publishing. I'd love to hear from Esme all about professional publishing, if you may, Esme.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Verity. It's amazing to hear the scope that you might not necessarily think about. But I think professional similarly is, probably one of our broadest sectors, because it encompasses everything from, working with legal, business, financial publishers, thinking about, all the information that those professions need. All of that is published by specialist publishers. And at the same time, there are professional membership bodies. So whatever your profession, everything from, specialist professions in oil and gas to accountancy, there are professional membership bodies, and they might be publishing legislation, standards, news content that might be aimed at their members. And they might even have their own magazine that they publish themselves. So all of those roles require publishing professionals. Outside of that, you will know about sort of news publishing, and that can be both B2B, where it's aimed at a specific trade. So for an example, the construction sector, they have a lot of magazines where they publish news within that specific sector, and that's called B2B publishing. B2C would be the stuff that we see on newsstands, so that is consumer focused publishing, and that's, printed magazines online. So everything from, Good Housekeeping right through to, BBC News. That would be news publishing. Professional also encompasses charities, so companies who are, creating content or communications, and we also work with the brilliant service providers to the publishing industry. So they are the ones that might be distributing or licensing or even printing books. So it can be so diverse.
Yeah, gosh, it's so varied, isn't it? And actually, it's really brilliant to hear just how varied it is, because it means that people who are looking to build experience in publishing can actually just look at the whole scope of different sorts of organizations that are out there, which can transfer nicely.
Exactly. And it's, as wonderful as the trade publishers are, there are other companies out there where, those publishing skills are equally important. And I'm sure our audience is going to be interested in the type of roles. So, Verity, what do you think are some of the common entry-level roles in each of these sectors?
Yeah, good question. So typically the entry-level roles across, education, professional and academic publishing could be anything at sort of assistant level. So it might be a research assistant if it was academic publishing, or it could be an editorial assistant in any one of the different sectors. It could be actually a coordinator as well. So you might get a communications coordinator. So it could even be something like a publishing assistant. It could be a sales rep, actually, is a really good entry-level role sometimes, where if someone possesses the right sort of drive and good relationship building skills and is really people-focused and customer-focused and might have some transferable skills from customer service positions, then it could go nicely into sales. So in terms of entry-level roles, I would very much say it's kind of administrative or assistant level roles where you might be supporting a team. But the fantastic thing about an entry-level role, which is a kind of assistant or coordinator level, it gives you such great insight into whether it's the organization or the industry as a whole, because you might be dealing with lots of different stakeholders across the business. So you get an understanding of their roles too, and get an understanding of what makes you feel most energized in a role, or what you enjoy the most. And then in terms of, I suppose, growth from that entry level, well, growth comes in lots of different ways. It doesn't have to just be up. It could be horizontal growth too. So it could mean that your role is expanding in other ways. So not just in terms of level or job title, can't it? It could mean that you take on different markets. For instance, if you start off by being focused on the UK, it might mean that your role is broadened to include other markets, whether it's across Europe or otherwise. So there's horizontal growth as well as vertical growth. But typically in publishing,
I think also in those entry level roles, you have so much exposure, like you say, to different leadership teams and different departments, that you might go in thinking you really want to be an editor, but actually you're exposed to the sales director and turns out you've got brilliant commercial acumen, so you can go down that route and explore
Yeah,
all these different things. So it's
so
exactly what you
true.
said.
Yeah, and I think in all the sectors, progression really depends on, not just the experience that you might have gained, but
Mm,
your power skills. So if you are someone that is really
totally.
people focused, and as you say, with a good business head on your shoulders, that you might go down more, whether it's the sales route or otherwise. So yeah, once you get your foot in the door, it's all about just building up that
Exactly.
experience and seeing what you enjoy the most, and then going from there.
Absolutely. I think it's very similar, for professional as well. I would completely echo that. I think see a lot of people kind of getting into professional publishing in these sort of customer support or even
Hmm.
customer success type roles,
Yeah,
where those customer service skills that you might have gained before coming into something full time are
yeah.
really valuable. I think the other thing is, in the world that we're in, that interest in digital, um, I encounter quite a lot of sort of digital platform roles where,
Mm.
you might be thinking about how to make content accessible, how to make
Mm,
that content searchable, and all the metadata and tagging and XML that goes behind that. So,
yeah.
um, I think you can kind of tailor it on your interests as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And on your expertise outside of a professional setting, if you are someone that is really good at social media, you might be able
Mm,
to transfer that into a marketing assistant role,
Mhm.
exactly.
or have good capabilities at using different AI tools to increase efficiencies in the way you're working. That might work quite well in operational roles.
Mm,
Um, so there's lots of different routes into publishing. But I think sometimes it can differ depending on the sector. So
Mhm.
I wondered, Alice, if you could tell us what are some surprising career pathways that people might not realize or know about
Yeah.
in the world of publishing?
Of course. No, thank you for the question. When it comes to academic publishing, because some of the content is highly specialist, maybe in a scientific discipline, or another field of study, sometimes people might have been PhD or researchers in the field themselves. They might have published articles, they might have been authors of articles, and then they make the move behind the scenes and they become really good commissioning editors, or they work in a different editorial capacity. So that's a move that I've seen happen quite frequently in academic. Sometimes we also look maybe at library staff, so people that have worked in the archival or library sector, and then they move into more of the information technology space, and they might have really solid skills when it comes to the data management and the cataloging of that information, and also what people are looking for when it comes to access to content and access to research. And another one that I've seen, again, more on the science side, maybe, but it's people that worked as science journalists or medical writers, and again, then they
Okay.
make the move more into the commissioning of content, or the getting
mm,
that content into really good shape. But what I do want to stress is that you don't need to be a scientist to work in academic publishing. Like, as I said before, this covers all subject areas. So I've seen archaeologists getting into archaeology publishing. So if you have,
amazing.
yeah, if you have a passion, if you're really passionate about a specific field, there could be a way into the world of academic publishing for that field.
Brilliant. That's so good to
Yeah.
hear. And I think similarly in education, you might have completed a PGCE and decided actually teaching isn't necessarily what you want to do, but you want to use that kind of pedagogical background outside the classroom, and transitioning into educational publishing or into an ed tech organization can be a
Mm,
brilliant way to use that knowledge of the way textbooks um, progress and help a child learn into a publishing role, or just even understanding the education landscape and the sorts of challenges
mm.
that teachers might be
Mhm.
facing, to then be able to offer them a solution going into a role in publishing.
I think similarly in professional, if you think of that, the legal sector, that there are a lot of people who, go and do a law degree, or even do that first year of training, and then find actually they don't want to be a lawyer, but they don't want to lose that legal knowledge.
Mhm.
So moving from a good example is moving from the legal sector into a legal publishing role, where there's lots of similarities, where you're working with technical content, you're having to have
Mhm.
that really eagle eye for detail when you're looking at contracts. That's the same when it comes to technical editing as well.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's brilliant to see people reinvent themselves in their career based on what they want to be doing in the moment without losing
Yeah.
all the knowledge and the skills that they've picked up. So Esme, I was wondering, do you think there's any transferable skills across all these publishing sectors that can really help people maybe move and make a horizontal move between them?
Absolutely. I think excuse me. I think the professional academic education, with all of them really, you're working with an element of technical content. So um, unless it's a very specialist subject, I think from a content and editorial perspective, I think the skills that you need to edit that kind of content are completely
Mhm.
transferable.
Mhm.
I think marketing is very transferable, because often these products are subscription based. So you'll know about subscription marketing models.
Yeah.
You'll know about very sort of technical digital marketing and all the tools that
Mhm.
might come with that.
Yeah.
And you know finally, I think probably customer facing skills are one of the most transferable skills to every single sector of publishing.
Yeah.
And bringing that commercial acumen um, to
Yeah.
each of those sorts
Yeah.
of roles.
Very true. And when it comes to being customer facing, I suppose each and every one of us can put ourselves in the customer's shoes
Mm,
and look at it from the customer's perspective. So we can
Mhm.
really kind of get under the skin of what customers' needs are um, in all the different areas and sectors.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, do we think there are any specific skills or qualifications that are particularly important for success in academic, professional, and educational publishing? Are there personal qualities or attributes that really are essential if we want people to thrive in these environments?
Good question. I think it'll naturally depend on maybe the discipline that people want to
Mm,
explore and go down. And as we know, there are so many different disciplines that people can go into in publishing. So it's not just editorial or marketing. There's product management, there's project management, there's sales, there's
Mhm.
operations, there's the pivotal back office area as
Mhm.
well. Um, there's
Design.
technology, design, publicity,
yeah.
PR, communications, research, so much. But I think maybe if starting out and looking to go into the publishing sphere, probably things like strong writing skills and attention
Mhm.
to
Mm,
detail will be important
yeah.
in every
Yeah.
area. And as well as what you touched on before, Esme, having that really good understanding of who your customers are or your
Mm,
target audience or whichever remit you're within. So if it's professional publishing and you're serving the construction industry, then demonstrating that you've done your research and you know how to get to grips with the latest trends and developments in that sector. And then I suppose probably, Alice, in terms of academic publishing, good
Mhm.
research skills maybe and that subject specific
Yes.
knowledge are really important as well.
Yes, being able to look at information and then condense it and make it accessible.
Yeah.
And I think it also ties into that communication skills that you were talking about. If I think of some of the specialist publication in, again, a field of study, that
mm,
ability to take quite complex information and then condense it and make it digestible and understandable for someone who's not an expert in that field, maybe someone
Yeah.
mm,
who's just started studying, and they don't want to be put off by, super technical lingo. So
Yeah.
that ability to communicate with people in different fields with different levels of understanding of that subject, I think is really key skill.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, when we think about power skills, so what some people might describe as soft skills, I think
Mhm.
um, the ability to be quite adaptable.
mm,
So
Mhm.
if you are transferring your skill set across different areas or different sectors. You want to showcase how adaptable you can be. Also, that willingness to learn, that's so important.
Yeah.
Showcasing organization skills, without a doubt, it's just so important to be able to give concrete examples of how organized you are. So for instance, in an interview, when thinking about, you know, your prioritization skills, you want to be able to give really nice concrete examples of times when you've been super organized in previous tasks or projects or roles that you've had, which transfer nicely into publishing. And being able to respond to maybe changes in the industry or developments as well. And I think naturally having that curiosity and interest in the area which you're working within, and willingness to learn is really important to make sure people really thrive.
Yeah, so true.
And I think that, you know, that adaptability piece is one of the, you know, exciting things about working in publishing, because it's always changing. You know, things are always
Constantly evolving.
changing.
Yeah. That's what makes it exciting, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely.
And on that, actually, Alice, I was going to ask you, what sorts of future trends do you think will most impact the different sectors that we're talking about today, so academic, professional, and educational publishing in the coming years?
That's a good question. It's one of those where I wish I had a crystal ball.
Get your crystal ball out.
Get a crystal ball out. Well, I mean, obviously, AI is a really big one, is already impacting the world of publishing, not just looking at the content, but mostly from an operational point of view, looking at more automation and more efficiency in the way that a publishing business runs, but also looking at the analytics, the ability to look at huge data sets in the world of research and do that quickly is making a lot of difference. In academic publishing, it's also being used in the world of research integrity and ethics. So it's playing a really big part in helping protect the intellectual property, helping avoid plagiarism and just unethical publishing. So it's also being used for really good missions, I would say. Another big trend that we've seen, looking maybe at smaller societies and charities that provide training materials as well as publications, is more e-learning. So the rise of different ways that people learn through videos or interactive quizzes, or, you know, I've seen them putting together virtual reality rooms to help train medical staff, for instance.
Wow.
So that seems to be creating new roles in the video and the content creation space, app development. So looking at technology in all forms, not just AI. And more general, when we look at academic publishing, it's constantly evolving because new research is coming out. They're making new discoveries, which leads to new publication, will lead to new journals being launched, or, you know, new publishers being created. So there's always going to be the need for more editors and more subject matter experts in that field, and more salespeople to then get that content out there, and marketing people to get that content you know, marketed and people are aware of it. So yes, I would say new research creates new roles.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to your point about how technology is at, you know, at the fore when we think about future trends and how we're evolving as an industry. I think where people are looking to transfer their skills into the industry or just even get their first role in publishing, it's really important to showcase how you might be using technology in your day-to-day. So whether that is you're dabbling with AI tools to help generate new ideas, or just to create efficiencies in the way you're doing things, then absolutely don't be afraid to talk about the way you're using AI and how it can really help get the creative juices flowing, or help you in the way you're working, because obviously publishers have AI at the front of mind at the moment, and thinking about how they can make their products or services more discoverable. They might be using and focusing on GEO at the moment, generative engine optimization. So it's not just about SEO, and that can really help with increasing engagement and traffic and interest and increased revenue.
definitely.
Fantastic.
I think the themes that you've talked about, Alice, are still quite relevant within professional as well. You know, obviously technology is the obvious one.
Mhm.
You know, AI is a really interesting opportunity for, you know, a lot of these organizations. I think it can it can impact how professionals find information. It can, you know, help with, you know, real-time updates with things like regulatory information, the opportunity for professional learning. So, you know, similarly to
Mm.
you know, the medical example that you gave, you know, for
Mhm.
specific professions and how they learn and the platforms that they're learning on, all of this is evolving. On a, you know, on a practical note, you know, the law is changing all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, policy is changing all the time. That all needs to be updated, and that, you know, with that comes new publishing, new resources, and new ways of talking about it.
Yeah, very true.
Fantastic. And Esme, is there one piece of advice that you would give to someone looking
Mm.
to begin a career in professional publishing?
Yeah, I think advice for anyone looking to get into any area of publishing, and it's the piece of advice that was given to me, was network, network, network. I think honestly, I genuinely, I stand by it being the best advice. I think
Mhm.
just do not be afraid to ask questions. We are all human.
Mhm.
Generally, you know, we like talking about ourselves. So if you have the opportunity to speak to someone who is, you know, brilliant at what they do, and you know, you admire them and you respect them and you're curious, ask
Mhm.
them. I think, you know, if you're engaged and you're curious and you're interested, that gets a really long way, and people will remember you for that.
Mhm.
Mm. That's a
True.
really good point. And networking doesn't have to just come in the form of in-person, face-to-face
No, not at
No.
engagement
all.
at events. You know, if you're someone that isn't um, describing themselves as an extrovert and you feel you're a bit more of an introvert, then you may be less comfortable sometimes in those sorts of
Yeah,
scenarios. But there's all sorts of networking, you know, formats. So I know the Society for Young Publishers, they do webinars and
Mhm.
online events, as well as so many other different types of organisations that we partner with too. And as Esme says, just showing curiosity. So even if
Mhm.
it's not there and then in the moment where you've heard a speaker at an event and
yeah,
you're going up and introducing yourself, you might just perhaps want to do some follow up afterwards separately
Yeah.
online and reach out to them on LinkedIn and say how you loved hearing what they were sharing on the talk recently and you'd love to continue the conversation. Would they perhaps be open to having you know, an informal coffee or a conversation online? So just be brave and be bold and have those 30 seconds of courage
Yes.
to reach out to people
definitely.
and build your brand and build your knowledge and insight
Mhm.
into the industry.
No, I love that. Networking, also following up to make sure that that networking
Yeah.
doesn't go to waste. I always add to that, similar to what Verity was saying, just be a sponge, like just absorb as much knowledge and information as possible, whether it's by asking questions, whether it's by being in the room, shadowing someone, just being proactive, especially at the beginning of someone's career. Like the
Yeah,
more you are exposed to it, the more that you're able to show your skills and
Yeah,
find your path into this amazing industry.
yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
And Verity, we are so lucky to have you at Inspired, but I know you had a really interesting journey, you know, obviously working in publishing before you came to Inspired. Can you share a bit more about your own journey and how it led you to
Absolutely.
today?
Well, it's very sweet of you to say, Esme. I think we've all had interesting journeys into publishing, and I think you and I are both boomerangs ourselves. So
Yes.
talk about that another time, but they definitely do work. So my journey into publishing, I started off by doing a degree in languages and business. And then I went on and did a master's in publishing, which gave me a really good foundation into the industry, actually. because you touch on all the different sectors and the different sorts of roles and how books are made. So really go down to the basis of publishing, and I loved that. And then from there I did an internship, which was brilliant, and that helped me kind of gain real world experience and build some fantastic connections, but also knowledge, and really understand as well what made me feel most energized in a role and what I enjoyed the most. And so from there, I went into publishing recruitment, which actually was where I suppose, realized that what I love the most about my day to day is the kind of the people aspect and the business aspect, and doing that in the realms of publishing is,
Mm-hmm.
the perfect combination. So after some time at Inspired, I then went and worked for one of the English language teaching publishers, and that also gave me so much insight into a more specific area of publishing, and it was a fantastic learning experience, which I then took back to Inspired, into my current role now, where I am very lucky to support so many different types of educational organisations in publishing or edtech or otherwise, and helping them, find the right people they need, and vice versa, helping candidates find the right roles that they're looking for as well.
Nice.
So a bit of a wiggly journey, but as I say, it's that combination of people, publishing, and business that I've really enjoyed, and that's helped to get me where I am today.
Fantastic.
So yeah. But I know that we're talking about lots of different things this Work in Publishing week. Alice, do you want to tell us a bit more about what else we'll be discussing this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been putting out a lot of content, and we've been doing events to really look at the whole spectrum of what working in publishing is. And if you've missed any of these events, you can go on our social media and you can look up all the amazing content we've been putting out. And then tomorrow we'll actually be doing a careers clinic session with bookcareers.com. So if you're polishing your publishing CV, if you're really ready to get started with your applications, join us tomorrow for that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Alice and Esme, and to the audience today for joining us, and stay engaged with us through the rest of the week. Follow the hashtag Work in Publishing on social media, share your own experiences, ask questions, as we say, show curiosity, and connect with others who share your passion for the industry. Also, don't forget to check out our downloadable How to Get into Publishing guide on our website. It's a really great starting point and resource that you can refer to whenever you need some guidance. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a QR code for that guide in the corner of the screen, so you'll be able to download it right from here.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's continue celebrating everything that makes working in publishing so rewarding, and inspiring people from all backgrounds to explore the endless opportunities that this industry has to offer. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, guys.